at DDOE how honored we are to have a very strong contingent of veterans working with us at the agency. And given the nature of the wars that we're engaged in here, in my brief experience, it's terrific to have folks that have that kind of experience and those have developed those kinds of leadership skills, which as I look around the table, that's what we're enjoying from all of you.
But on behalf of the Mayor, Adrian Fincey, I'd like to thank all of you for your service, all of the veterans that are here. We live every day under an umbrella of safety, and it's because of our armed services. Sometimes you don't really know it, particularly in the peacetime, you don't really think about it. You know, Veterans Day is just another day to have off. But everybody should really take the time to appreciate those that serve.
I was part of the first Gulf War. It was exciting, over in Cyprus and some other places. And the most exciting part about my last 3 years in the service was that I worked at Beale Air Force bases where the SR-71 was flown, the spy planes, and I got to go to places around the world. And it was always interesting when I'd go to a new station to do some work. I would always go with no uniform, no nothing, and you would end up going into a trailer somewhere and surrendering all your IDs and everything and giving me a fake badge that said I was an American citizen working for the British government or something like that. Exciting stuff.
Military band, and I worked under the Spirit of the Corps, and each time our troops would actually go overseas, being departed to Desert Storm, D-Day, what have you, we were there to support. It was basically moral support. Wow. And I really enjoyed, I played with the president, and as well as the governor, and the mayor. So it's been a very enjoyable experience.
I was a medical corpsman and found myself in the Young War in 1973 and had my first trip to Africa then, and the timing was really very strange because just the very single moment when the ceasefire was supposed to happen was when my medical unit was crossing the Suez Canal, and the very first car on the pontoon bridge crossing the canal got stuck. And I looked at my watch and I'm saying, oh, this is not a good time to be in halfway between Africa and Asia when the ceasefire is going about into effect. So to kind of like get over the nervousness of the moment, I said, I gotta sing a song, and I really can't sing, and the only song I could think of was Where Are All the Flowers Gone?
I was an officer in the Army. I can't really talk about what I did except one little quip. For one day I got to guard Dr. Martin Luther King when he came to Detroit in March of '68, 2 weeks before he was killed in Memphis. And that was a seminal moment for me.
I was in the 1st Armored Division, which is an Army unit, and I was a Signal Corps officer, which meant that we helped the tank division, when it would go into the field, communicate. So we set up basically mobile, or like cell phone service for the military. I was deployed to Bosnia for 2 terms, or for 2 tours, and on peacekeeping mission. But when people ask me if, you know, what the military was like, I mean, I am classic, you know, ex-gener that needed a way to pay for school, and so did ROTC. And being the feminist that I was, didn't make a whole ton of sense for me to be in the Army. I do believe, I mean, a lot of times we train to fight, but I do believe in what we were doing.
I'm Linda Richardson. I've been in the military now for 18 years, working on my retirement. I'm in the Army Reserve. I am a logistical officer, 1 officer, CW2, working on my 3. Hopefully I get promoted next summer. Basically, I've had a great experience. I haven't had any great stories to tell. I was departed from the office for about a year, back in 2003, and I came back in 2004. I did actually miss the office because I found myself being physically challenged more than I cared to be.
When I was at the Pentagon, I was a ghostwriter for 2 secretaries of defense who wrote testimony, did their interviews and things. So when you read an interview in the paper, the Secretary of Defense doesn't actually interview, the staff does that. So the most fun thing I got to respond to was a letter from a woman in a really nice section in New York City, Gramercy Park, She wrote, "Dear Mr. Weinberger, this letter concerns a series of satellites that was launched in the 1967-1968 timeframe. The reported purpose of these satellites is communication. I feel this is a long time to go without any public notice, especially in view of the fact that these satellites are so loud." And she went on to say that the real purpose of the satellites was to read her mind.
Oh.
And when they went over, she could hear Russian men and American women in the background talking. And she wanted to know, "Mr. Weinberger, what are you going to do about that?" So I wanted to write back and say, "Dear Mrs. So-and-so, you've talked to their Russian counterparts and we have agreed to turn off the satellites. By the time you finish reading this letter, you will no longer hear the voices."